I appreciate your thoughts there. I'm just going to introduce another guest. We have also joining us this morning Honorable Oluwole, who is a fifth-term member of the House of Representatives and also the Chairman Judiciary Committee in the House of Reps. He sat over the Public Procurement Committee in the House of Reps and also has been Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee also in the House of Representatives. Honorable Oluwole, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise Daily.
Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well. I'm sure that you must have been following events. I hope that you've been able to follow our conversation so far, talking about the Nobel laureate who says he personally gives presidents at least a year before he begins to come out with any public criticism. You have been in a position of more than just, when I say public criticism, you have sat on very important committees in the House of Representatives, one of them a statutory committee recognized by the Constitution, which is the Public Accounts Committee. That's something that usually is reserved for members of the opposition in the House of Representatives. And right now, you're still a member of the House of Representatives. So from what you have seen so far, I mean, as a fifth-term member, looking at administration in, administration out, if you were to give your own comments on how the president and even perhaps some state governors have started their work, would you say that there is any reason for Nigerians to be hopeful for a better economy and a better standard of living come 2024?
I'll answer yes. That from the way the incumbent president is carrying his functions on, Nigerians should be hopeful for a better life come 2024. I say this on certain parameters. One, the last government led by President Muhammad Buhari, honestly, well, he tried his best, but his downside was to the effect that he had no economic team. He had no financial economic team at all. But when you look at the team that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu they assembled, you give it to them that yes, from their track records, pedigree, he has put in place very sound people, knowledgeable, experienced people. It's of recent that I had an encounter with the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Bagudu, former governor of Kebbi State. I didn't know him that much, but when I engaged him, we summoned him. When we saw the small amount, the party sum allocated to the judiciary arm of government, we asked him, we summoned him to come and explain to us why they have to subject the judiciary arm of government to a beggar. And the gentleman came, and from his position, I was, I became interested in him, and I had the belief that he is a good man, a round peg in a round hole. And when you put him along the side of Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance and Economy, I can tell you that the two of them, if they work together harmoniously with other ministers, particularly those ministers saddled to man ministries for infrastructures. I say infrastructure, I'm talking about education, health, security, works. If they work together and they also engage the parliament, not on the fire brigade approach, before you bring the budget to the parliament, I expect that these various ministers will have engaged the various committees, because the executives, they don't know it all. The downside of the last administration is to look down on the parliament to assume that they know it all. No, nobody holds a monopoly to knowledge, neither ideas. So if the current ministers, ministries, engage lawmakers, engage civil society, engage resource persons, people who have the experience, and they look at best practices in the world, I am very, very hopeful, because the government needs money. The government, that as we speak now, a lot of leakages in the system, and once we're able to block all those leakages and get all the resources together, I'm very, very hopeful that come 2024, Nigeria will have cause to smile.
Well, I'm sure that a number of people will be looking forward to smiling. But in the meantime, there are still areas that give us a lot of concern. Yes, the economy is tough, and I know that there'll be many more questions on what other parameters you have seen aside your engagement with the current Minister for National Planning. Security is a very sore point. Just today, or just yesterday, it was reported that 72 people, at least 72 people, lost their lives in attacks that happened in communities in Plateau State, and this is just in just one place. There are a number of other places where a number of people lost their lives. In Ebonyi, for instance, we understand 3 people lost their lives. In Katsina, we understand 8 traders lost their lives in circumstances that were totally avoidable. So for you, I mean, looking at the fact that we still have a war, a security war on many fronts, what exactly are you seeing so far? I know that this is the budget defense season, and that members of the National Assembly are just on a small break. They should be back before the new year. What else are you seeing? Because some people are saying the way we're currently structured, unless something drastically shifts, we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle and expecting different results, and that will be the definition of insanity. What precisely are you saying that you think is shifting, especially in our security architecture, that will be bringing us better results?
Thank you very much. You see, I've been privileged to chair the Committee on Defense for good 8 years, 2003 to 2011. And I can tell you straight away that the current security architecture we have in Nigeria needs serious review. One, they don't have the personnel. The Nigerian defense system now, armed forces, police, they don't have enough personnel. You have thousands, millions of Nigerians youths roaming the street that you can recruit, train them, and harm them, because they have forces. They need information, intelligence gathering. That is the most, which is very expensive. People don't know this side of security financing. Intelligence gathering. Before any incident or attack occurs, if you have a sound intelligence gathering, you should be on top of it. You should be on top of it. And if you're on top of it, what do you do next? You mobilize, both by air and land. But if you don't have the personnel and you don't have the finances to get information for intelligence gathering, you have the intelligence community, there. You need to give them enough funds. You need to give them the manpower they require. You also need to give them the tools as we speak. I don't know how many fighter jets, aircrafts that Nigerian Air Force, I don't know how many they have on ground that are functioning. I don't know how many the Nigerian Army, how many they have on ground. I don't also know the kind of synergy between the 3 tiers of institutions of the armed forces, vis-a-vis other paramilitary institutions, and civil defense, SSS, and all that. So they all need to work together. But more importantly, ma'am, you do not have enough personnel to police Nigeria, neither tools.
Honorable Kerr, you would know this because you've had the privilege of chairing the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives, where you've had to hold some of these heads of organizations accountable a great deal. But when you say we don't have enough personnel, but you talked about funding and intelligence gathering and all of that, what else do we need to have done in these organizations to ensure the security apparatus is strengthened in Nigeria?
Sir, I said earlier that we don't have the requirements to police the nation. And what do? If you look at the budget system that we currently operate, they call it envelope system, which in itself violates provisions of Section 18 of Public Procurement Act, which states that agencies, MDAs, should conduct their needs assessment. So in the instant case, I expect that the armed forces, the security sector, will have conducted their needs assessment, identify the good work services personnel that they need, conduct market survey, know the cost, and the law says clearly that they should be anchored in the annual budgetary estimate. So if they do that, and then the Minister of Budget Planning, without any engagement, just sit down somewhere and hand over an envelope, like they did in judiciary, the judiciary arm of government, a whole arm of government conducted an assessment, and they came to the conclusion that they need 514 billion naira to pay workers, service all their obligations, all the judiciary from all tiers of all the states, their pension and how to be paid by NJC and all that. And then the DG budget sits down within the four corners of his room office and hand over an envelope of 165 billion naira. So how do you expect judiciary to function? How do you want them to deliver assessment conducted? So in the instant case, in the case of the armed forces security, so all of them, civil defense, Nigerian DSS, NIA, and the DIA, Navy, Army, Air Force, they've done their needs assessment. They came with what they need to be able to deliver. And don't forget that the Fiscal Responsibility Act demands that Mr. President present to the Parliament MTEF. And MTEF speaks to 3 years plan. And when you look at the MTEF and then the Parliament approves them, saying you return it to Mr. President, based on which he brings up his budget. Now, I want us to relate the MTEF and then the budget presented vis-a-vis the needs assessment conducted by the various MDAs, which should be the bedrock, the basis for budget formulation. There are variants. They do not add up. So it tells you that something is missing somewhere. So, but if they engage lawmakers and engage members of society vis-a-vis resource persons, you have such a scenario. You have such a scenario.
Honorable, if I may come in here, yes, you've painted the picture of what these organizations go through in terms of needs assessment and what is required on ground. But is the Budget and Planning Office not also considering a balancing of all the needs that are available and the resources at hand? Don't you think that's also being considered before they put out the envelope system of budgeting that's causing problems already, as you said, violating Section 18 of the Procurement Act? So how do we get to that point where we're balancing what the needs are and the resources available?
Excuse me, the government borrows. I don't see anything wrong in government borrowing, but when you borrowing for what purpose? In the last administration, you go and borrow money for tea, coffee conferences to achieve what? When you have serious problem confronting you, instead of you to borrow and confront those issues that you need. Okay, sir, if you don't have security in place and you want to build roads in certain areas or certain parts of the country, like if you want to build roads in Zamfara, where I grew up, federal roads and all that, and you have security challenge there, and you don't face that security, then how would you be able to deliver there? But you go and borrow money for wrong purposes. That is the problem that we had in the last administration. You took a lot of loans. You depleted our foreign reserve. So now, I don't see anything wrong for President Bola Tinubu to borrow from various multilateral, bilateral institutions, with cheaper cost, and then confess the issues confronting us. We need to take care. The moment we're able to solve our problems in the areas of security and power, Nigeria will be at peace.
Perhaps one of the issues here, Honorable, is whether or not we as a nation, government, state, federal, are doing enough to motivate these men that you say we don't even have enough. The CDS, the Chief of Army Staff recently told us that 50,000 of his men are not going to spend their time with their families during this Christmas season. And definitely good parents will only be thinking about their families. So, and I know that there are not just men, there are also women in the military who will not spend their time with their families. Do you think, given what you know, we have or are adequately motivating these men whom you say we don't have enough of to do what we need them to do?
I can tell you straight away, they are not adequately motivated. They are not. I exited the entire armed forces and paramilitary institutions. I mean, security, DIA, SSS, and I exited from PENCOM scheme because in other democracies, You don't subject such group of people as if they are doing the normal work other people do. These are people who have sworn to die if death comes their way in the course of their work. So, as we speak, I don't think that our armed forces are well motivated. Find out when they are flying, at their cost of flight, are they discounted? Where do they get their fuel? They buy fuel that costs at the rate at which you and I buy fuel. And these are special people. So we need to do more. We need to run our security system the way it is done in other.
How about their feeding? Do we feed them well?
You go and find out how much is their ration, the amount of money they should be given per day. And if you multiply that amount with the number of people you are deploying, go to the budget of Nigerian forces, go to the budget of Nigerian army if they have enough, if they are giving enough money.
And I'd like to pick up on the budget, Honorable. Okay, you know, we've had cause to have this conversation in time past, and some of the concerns raised about the budget of the Nigerian army is that there is priority placed more on infrastructure development within the force rather than on the welfare of men of the force themselves. And we also heard from the CDS just days ago on the program that some of his men go home with as low as 50,000 naira per month. In the current budget, we gather that it was done behind closed doors, the budget defense of the army. What's different this time that you can tell us about this budget? Will there be priority placed on welfare and on the big concern of recruitment into the armed forces rather than on infrastructure development of the armed forces?
Ma'am, the DG budget and the Minister for Budget and National Planning should sit down with the leadership of the armed forces and the leadership of the committees, various committees manning this various agencies, and to look at the needs assessment, the budget, not the envelope budget presented, handed over to them. They need to look at the budget they prepared. They should sit down and dialogue and discuss. Right? No serious nations take the armed forces to the market square, or take them to the channels. You need to sit down with them and discuss and be on the same page. If you don't do that, we're just playing to the gallery.